Hello again, you sick, twisted weather freaks, and welcome to another fun filled, action packed, and intellectually stimulating edition of This Week in Weather. I'm your host and meteorologist, DT from Weather Risk, your captain of chaos, your colonel of confusion, your commander of catastrophe. Let's talk about this week in weather and tropical depression number 7, soon, I think, to become tropical storm Fiona. And then we're going to talk about the second half of September because Fiona is going to play a part in changing the pattern along with the typhoon that just hit the east coast of China and is turning to the northeast. Both of those tropical systems are going to alter the pattern and finally bring in a real surge of autumn weather for the eastern half of the country before the end of the month is out. So let's get right to it. It's a lot to cover here. Okay, here is the 5 p.m. advisory from the Hurricane Center, which I'm sure you've already seen. So we're going to start out with the basics. There becomes the tropical depression, soon to be tropical storm, and of course the official track has it going, as you can see, actually a little south of Puerto Rico, then cutting across Puerto Rico in the Big Island of Hispaniola. And that's a reasonable track. It could be to the north of that, could be to the south of that. That's a very reasonable track. And of course, that sort of track, if it moves across those land masses, this is going to preclude any sort of significant strengthening. Here is the satellite picture this evening. You can see where the system is. It looks pretty healthy. It really does. And you can see not only the intense convection with the infrared there, but you can see the feeder bands as well, to the south here and on the cloud mass, you can see them in the infrared. So it does have a very nice circulation to it. And you can see even more here. So this has got, you can see there's a real burst of convection near the center. So it does have some shear on the western side, but it's pretty good. It's pretty nice looking tropical depression. I would think this is a tropical storm at this point, but that's up to the Hurricane Center to make that call. I don't get into the argument whether it is or it isn't too much. I have my opinions, but I think too many people complain about that, quite frankly. Now here is the latest wind shear. And you can see the tropical system. Now notice to the north, you see the red lines here? Let me call it my marker so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. There we go. So you see the red lines here and here? This is the strong wind shear. Now the system is right there. So right now in the yellow and the greens, that's very light wind shear, but just to the north there is some. So as long as the system stays on the west track, it's going to stay south of the wind shear. And that's the point I wanted to get across here. So let me take this out. And then we can go here. The other thing is on the dust. Now here we finally see the persistent, overpowering dust cloud, which has dominated the tropical Atlantic since June, finally dissipating, finally breaking down here in the middle of September. And of course, there's the system right there in the middle of the picture. There is some dust around, but look, the dust is much, much weaker off the coast of Spain and the Azores. And part of that is because of the change in the pattern in Europe. Europe is now seeing significant rain and cooler temperatures. The pattern there has changed. We're seeing some blocking showing up over Iceland and Greenland. So the pattern there is changing, and that's reducing the dust, the northeast winds. Remember, we're getting these northeast winds. Let me see if I can call this up. Here you go. You're getting these northeast winds coming down from Spain and the Azores, bringing down the dust from off of Africa, and that's flooding the dust in here. That's no longer the case. That's now gone. So we'll just take that out, and then we can see the significant improvement in the overall dust allotment in the Atlantic Basin. If we look at the wind shear tendency, again, here's the system right here. There's a tropical depression 7, and you notice it's pretty light, the wind shear. It's not much, and you can see that the white areas, it's where it's increasing, the blue areas is decreasing. So ahead of it, there's not a lot of shear here. This is in pretty good shape right now for the time being. So that is the good news there. And if we go here, we can see this enlargement of it, and it's the wind shear looks really light, not a big deal. So there is some wind shear to the north, but as long as it stays on a due west track, it's in pretty good shape. All right, now let's talk about this and see what was happening. First, I want to take a look at this slide here. We'll go to this one first. Now, this is the sea surface temperatures here as of September 14th, and you can see that the tropical Atlantic off the coast of Africa is not warm. There are areas of blue here. Now, it's not what I call cool, but again, one of the problems with this hurricane season is that the northeast winds coming down from Spain, in addition to the dust, has been dumping cold water, causing upwelling from the Azores and the Canary Islands down into the eastern subtropical and tropical Atlantic off the coast of Africa. So you have not had a lot of really warm water off the southwest coast of Africa. It hasn't been cold, it's just not what a lot of people expected. Now, once you get past 40 degrees, 50 degrees longitude, which is where the tropical depression is right now, notice the really warm water here. So you do have a lot of warm water in the western Atlantic Ocean, but not in the central eastern Atlantic. So that's the first point. All right, now let's go back to this image. This is from the 12Z GFS, and this got a lot of people like very, very excited. So we have Fiona right here as a 982 millibar. I guess is a Category 1 hurricane. There it is to the northeast of the Bahamas, and you have this big old high right here. This is a big high pressure area blocking it. See that? The high is blocking it so it can't go out to sea. And now you're getting a force trying to drive it towards the coast. So that's what people are getting excited about. And then, of course, what happens is that the GFS at 12Z on this Wednesday was taking it towards the coast, and then it's approaching just to the east of Virginia and the Maryland coast, and then approaching it as a Category 3 hurricane into Long Island and central and eastern New England. Sort of like Bob, for example, what Bob did in 1991. And you can see that in more enlargement here. Now, let me be very clear about this. This scenario is bullshit. This is not going to happen. I'll explain to you why, but this is not going to happen. Now, it got a lot of people excited. Kind of looks like a little bit like Sandy, a little bit. And by Sandy, we're talking about, or Isabel, either one, where the system tracks to the northwest. So the system forms, let's say here, and then it turns this way towards the coast, this way towards the coast, either Virginia or Maryland or Delaware, New Jersey, into New England. The southeast and northwest trajectory. That's the Sandy Isabel scenario. We saw that with Hazel in 1954. We saw it with the 1933 Chesapeake Bay hurricane. It's not common, but it does happen. But it only happens under certain conditions. And the GFS here is wrong. So let me show you what the GFS was doing. This is the day 6 map of the GFS, and you can see Fiona there north of Hispaniola. Now there is a little trough which shows up here on Tuesday, September 20th, that moves off New England. So that trough, apparently, if Fiona stays weak and stays on a westerly course, this trough here, this trough is going to miss it. See, if Fiona stays down here, this trough will miss it. Now, if Fiona's up here, this trough will kick it out to sea. But if it stays weak like this trough will miss it. Then here comes the heat dome. Now, this heat dome is being amplified by this upper low, this monster upper low in California. More rain for those guys, more cool weather. West Coast really, really need it. This is very good news for those guys. But that causes this dome to expand and explode. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So the ridge in the dome is going to build this way. Let me show you what I mean. So here it comes. See how the ridge explodes? The trough moves inland on September 21, next week, a week from today. And then on the GFS, the dome builds into Virginia and Michigan. You see what it does here? That would bring really warm temperatures back into the Mid-Atlantic and the Ohio Valley. A return to summer. If this is correct. If this is correct. We don't know that. Now here's Fiona down there. You see that off to the east of the Bahamas. So there's the trough. You see how the trough we talked about here, that trough right here was going to miss it? Well, there it is. It's missing it. It passes it to the north. So then the GFS says, okay, well then the ridge is going to build because this trough coming in here is not stopping. This thing is going to keep moving eastward. This thing here. This trough is going to keep moving this way. And as it moves this way, it's going to drive the dome east as well. And we see that in the next slide here. And this is now for September 23rd. This is Friday the 23rd from the 12Z run. And again, this is not correct. This is not going to happen. I just want to show you what the model is doing. Now the dome is gone from here to there over New England. And what that does is that blocks Fiona and forces it in towards the Carolinas and Virginia while this trough is approaching the Midwest. See what happens? And the result is you get this. This is ridiculous. Now this is the classic Fujiwara. Two big weather systems, two big low pressure areas spinning around each other. That's what the GFS is showing. See what it does? Now what happens here is it gets caught by the upper low, and because the GFS overdoes this feature, this is way overdone in upper low here. Okay, you don't go from this to that. Okay, this is just, it's just, this is the 23rd of September, and now it's Next day 24, 25. That's ridiculous. And of course, that captures Fiona and pulls it into New England. So that's why the model does this, because it comes up with that upper air pattern. Okay, this is bullshit. Now, here we can see the 12Z GFS ensemble. This is the 18Z, I should say. And you can see 18Z, it's right here. You can see the cluster of all the low pressure areas. That's where it is, near Antigua, so to the east of Puerto Rico. And then you can see the 12Z run, what it does is it takes it north of Hispaniola and then to the northeast of the Bahamas in this direction here. So the question is, does it get pulled further to the northeast, or does it get pushed back towards Virginia and the Carolinas because the high is blocking it to the north? Here is the GFS ensemble from 18Z, and you can see almost all of it takes it to the northeast, okay, passing close to Bermuda, maybe to the south and east. Very few of them take it to Hispaniola, Cuba, the Bahamas. Most of them take it. And the reason for that is because the GFS is now doing this. This is the 18Z's GFS. Let me show you again. Oops. Where is it? There we go. There's the 18Z. See 18Z here, right? Okay. So now what happens is this thing doesn't close off. It now becomes a monster trough, you see here, and that forces this to get kicked to the east. So the difference is closes off, does not close off. Closes off the upper low in the Great Lakes, does not close off. Instead, you have a long wave trough here, goes from Manitoba, Minnesota, down to Arkansas, and that forces Fiona off the coast, harmlessly out to sea. That is the correct scenario. And the reason for that is because look at this huge ridge here on the west coast. You got to look at everything, folks. You got to look at everything. You really, really do when you're trying to figure this stuff out. See the ridge exploding here on the west coast? Okay, that forces this trough to constantly be progressive. This goes up. Let me see if I can change the rotation on this. There you go. This goes up, and then that forces this to amplify and come eastward. There you go. That's what happens. And we can see it. There's the 18Z taking it out to sea. Big conglomeration to the east of the Bahamas taking it out to sea. Now the European showing something a little different. So let's talk about that for a second. Here's the 12Z European. Notice that many of the streak takes it across the big islands, and they turn it, because they keep it weaker over the islands, it turns north closer to the coast than the GFS is showing at 18Z. And let me show you what I mean here. So this here will just blow this up. And then this is from the folks at Weather Nerds. So here it is for 72 hours. Notice that there's a significant number of members which are south of Puerto Rico. See that here? South of Puerto Rico. Now that is a little different from this, which has it very close to Puerto Rico, passing over it. So it has a little further south. And then if we go here, we can see, notice almost all of them are now south of Hispaniola. That's not what we're seeing here or here. They pass north of Hispaniola. So the European ensemble has it passing south of Hispaniola on Monday, and then you have a split. Some of them go north, and some of them go towards Jamaica and the Northwest Caribbean. Because the system stays so weak, it stays more westerly. See that? And then finally, when we get to day 7, we have a big split. We have one cluster here in the Northwest Caribbean and another one north here in the Bahamas. Almost equal sample. Cluster here and a cluster here. So there is a viable scenario out here where this system stays south of Hispaniola and heads towards Jamaica and the Northwest Caribbean, and maybe becomes a Caribbean or a Gulf of Mexico storm. So, there are a couple of possibilities and scenarios out here. Now, longer term, one thing we can see here is on the 200 millibar velocity potential anomalies, the energy in the Atlantic. So here's the Atlantic right here. Let me call this up again, my arrow. There you go. So here's the Atlantic. You see, right, the Atlantic basin. See this? Africa, there's the waves come off, there's the Caribbean here. So this goes from September 15th all the way down to September 29th. And in this area here, we have rising air. See this? Right now, rising air where Fiona is the next several days. And then the rising air shifts from the Caribbean and the Southwest Atlantic to the Eastern Atlantic and off the coast of Africa by the time we get to the end of September here. So this is a pretty good cycle for a late season surge of tropical energy in the Atlantic basin. This is pretty good. This is the best we've seen in quite a while, so maybe we'll see that. Now, further down the road, this is the tropical cyclone that hit China. And what happens, moves off of China, and then is this the same tropical cyclone? I think it is. And then, anyway, it goes up into the Aleutian Islands, and you can see it goes into the Bering Sea. Now, when it does that, it causes the pattern to amplify. This very intense storm, it won't be a hurricane up there, the water is ice cold, but it'll become a large ocean storm, which will force a huge ridge to form in Alaska and northwest Canada. Here, you're going to get, when this storm goes boom, you're going to get a big ridge forming right in here. And that's going to impact the weather down the eastern United States. Let me show you. This is now September 27th. This is the European from Wednesday, today. Look at the huge ridge on the west coast. That's the squiggly line. And look at this enormous trough, the biggest we've seen in months, stretching from Hudson's Bay and Baffin Island all the way down to Georgia. I mean, good googly moogly. This is a big surge of cool air that comes in. Autumn comes crashing in. And the reason why this surge amplifies is because of the tropical cyclone moving into the Bering Sea. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And then, in fact, if you can even adjust it, this here is the 12Z run. Okay, notice here, the ridge, there's a bit of a ridge here and a bit of a trough here. It's moderate, but it's not that great. Look how much stronger it is on the 18Z. It matches the European almost verbatim. Let me blow up the 18Z here so you can see it. See how it matches the European? Right here, much stronger ridge, much stronger negative anomaly in the Ohio Valley and East Coast. So this is, this is September 27th. Autumn is coming. Autumn is coming. Big time by the end of the month. Okay, so in summary, here we go. Key points. Never, ever get excited about a tropical cyclone tracks or the models within the first 24 hours when the tropical depression or the tropical cyclone forms. Models have to see it, they have to detect it, make sure they're seeing it on their grids, and often the low-level center will jump around or shift. Just, the initial model going, oh my God, it's got a hurricane right from my hometown. No, calm down. Wait 24 hours, okay? Really. Okay. With the Sandy and the Isabel tracks, remember the hurricane got pulled northwestward into the coast. And the key point here is that as we got closer to that threat, the models agreement was increasing, not decreasing. It was increasing as we got closer and closer to that scenario. That's in other words, the models are moving towards consensus, not showing less consensus. Okay. With this particular Fiona, tropical depression number 7, we have 3 scenarios here. All right, the first one, out to sea or passing close to Cape Cod, Bermuda, maybe Bermuda, and then to the south and east of Cape Cod, out to sea. Close is a relative term. We'll have to see. It could be within 100 miles, it could be 200 miles, so we'll see. The other one is it hits central and eastern New England. I don't think that's likely. I can't rule it out completely. I don't think it's likely. I don't like the scenario. I just put it out there. Scenario number 3, tropical depression number 7, Fiona, stays weak. It bumps across the big islands and then it gets ripped apart or dies. It doesn't do anything. And then scenario number 4, that's the same as scenario number 3, but in this case, because it stays south of Hispaniola and south of Cuba, it goes into the northwest Caribbean and it becomes a much stronger storm, maybe a threat for the Gulf. That's a scenario I think a lot of people are overlooking, so keep scenario number 4 there in mind. And then finally, the East China typhoon is recurving into the Pacific and then into the September 19th to 20th into the Bering Sea. And that will lead to a major pattern amplification in the eastern U.S. with a large-scale cold air outbreak September 26th through October 1st. Now, I'm not talking winter cold, we're talking autumn cold, okay? So let's not get carried away here. But it could be cold enough for the first frost of the season. That's a real possibility. The autumn arrives, if this is right, in force. Again, the last week, several days of September and the first couple days of October. So we'll see. Anyway, oops, that last part here, let me get rid of that. Anyway, that's how I see it for this tropical depression number 7 and Fiona. It is probably the system that has the most potential. And it's there are a couple different possibilities out there. Like I said, I think I like scenario number four a lot. I think that's a possibility. I'm not favoring it, but people need to keep it in mind. Right now, of these four different scenarios, you know, I mean, scenario number four is almost a derivation of scenario number three. So, it's six one half dozen. I could even change this to like 3A because it's almost the same as scenario number three. In any event, that's how I see it. It's got a lot of possibilities, a lot of things of interest to keep in mind, so we'll see what happens. Anyway, this is meteorologist DT from Weather Risk. I will see you over on the Twitter page and over on the Facebook page.